You're listening to Carrie Lutz's Financial Survival Network, where you get valuable information you just can't find anywhere else. To thrive in today's trying times, you need the Financial Survival Network, now more than ever. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and get your free newsletter and gift. Financial Survival Network, now more than ever.
Welcome. You are listening to the Financial Survival Network. I'm Carrie Lutz. Today is 10/27/21. Almost done with October. No crashes, no financial debacles yet, but there's still 4 more days left. You never know what's going to happen. One debacle that's been unfolding, it's almost a kabuki dance for years now, is this student loan bubble. Back a couple of administrations ago, we were under $1 trillion. I think we were around 800 billion. The last time I looked, student loan debt had skyrocketed to upwards of 1.6 trillion. I'm sure it's even higher than that now. The current admin has made noises about forgiving student loan debt, and it's a really wonderful concept. Great in theory, but like so many things in theory, it just doesn't translate well into reality. And, well, it's a minefield out there, especially when you're dealing with credit. So we've got our old friend, Paul Oster, back with us. Paul, you are the credit expert here. You've been helping people repair their credit for over a decade now. Tell us, what is going on with the whole concept of student loan debt now?
Well, I think, like you said, sometimes, in theory, what sounds, great, it's not only has it been difficult to execute. I mean, this particular program has been a debacle from the beginning. You had over 90% of the applicants being denied access to the very program that they should have been approved for. So they've come a long way in both theory and execution, which is great. But, we're still trying to figure out who's going to pay for it. And what is the exact benefit, to the student borrower who may or may not be a student anymore. But the reality is that, if they don't do anything with the savings that they've now, obtained through this debt forgiveness, then what was it really for? Did we teach them a lesson? Did they learn about finances and debt? And so all of those questions, we're still faced with. So, look, it's a great thing. Student loan debt, as you had mentioned, has been this, I've said it for years and years and years. It's definitely the next shoe that's going to drop. Perhaps the only other debt crisis that's spiraling out of control more is our healthcare system. But student loan debt is something that we have to get a hold of immediately. The student loan companies, these finance companies, are just lending more and more money. So institutions are just charging more and more money, and we're on this hamster wheel and vicious cycle.
Yeah, and it seems like there's like no end in sight to it. So the idea of forgiving literally trillions of dollars worth of student loan debt, something's got to happen here, right? Something has to give.
Something has to give. And again, if you walk it back to the financial planning side of things, right? So there should have been a financial planning event that happened long before the loan was distributed. But unfortunately, most of the times it doesn't happen, right? So somebody applies for some type of higher education institution. They figure out how much it's going to be. They get offers. They solicited from both private and federal banks that are going to loan them this money. And a couple of things happen. A lot of students borrow more money than is actually needed at that point in time. They think that 6-month deferment is, a long enough time for them to get their houses in order after they graduate. You and I both know 6 months it's less than a blink of an eye. It's like a half a blink. So the deferment period certainly, I think makes the loan very attractive, and so does the relatively lower interest rates. But there's lots of pitfalls associated, especially if it's a federally guaranteed student loan. You can claim bankruptcy, you can become disabled and still be obligated to pay back that loan. So I think if you walk it all the way back, there needs to be certainly a more in-depth discussion, the planning side of things, and think about the parents, the co-signers of these student loans. Unfortunately, we see this as a tremendous amount of clients that come through our doors are the parents of the borrowers. And when they co-signed, they didn't really understand that not only are you obligated for the monthly payment, you're ultimately responsible for the entire balance of that loan if the borrower should happen to fail to pay back the loan. So again, I think we need to do a better job long before the loan is distributed in the early planning stages of the loan, so people understand, what the consequences are of obtaining a student loan.
Hey, you're an expert in credit. If a senior citizen goes to get a reverse mortgage, they have to get 2 hours of education in order to get that mortgage. They have to go through a course. They got to take a test, all of this. But somebody who's in their younger years, who's making a decision about debt that can affect their entire lives and really put them behind the 8 ball and have awful consequences, that person, it's okay. Just go ahead and sign right here. And they could be on the hook for hundreds of thousands of dollars. And you know what happens when you default on a student loan? Then all sorts of dire consequences. They're seizing your tax refunds. You are getting charged a default rate of interest. And like you said, that never goes away. It's with you till the day you die.
Yeah, I mean, the credit impact it works both ways. A student loan that's being reported on your credit report that is positive is an awesome way for younger consumers to build their credit. But man, you miss one payment, a 30-day late payment could easily cost that consumer 100 points off their credit score. And let's remember that in the beginning, when you have a thin credit profile, you don't have a long credit history behind you, you don't come out of the gates, at an 800. You're going to be in the 5s and the low 6s. So to lose 30, 50, 100 points is devastating. And it takes years most of the time for people to recover from that event. So I love the analogy of, the prereq of getting a reverse mortgage is you actually have to sit through some educational materials so you understand the consequences of taking out a reverse mortgage.
Yeah, and the kids really don't understand what they're signing here at all, do they?
Don't just survive, thrive. The Financial Survival Network.
Trilogy Metals is a world-class developer in Alaska's Ambler Mining District. The company already possesses 8 billion pounds of copper, 3 billion pounds of zinc, over 1 million gold-equivalent ounces, and now over 77 million pounds of cobalt. Trilogy's Arctic project boasts an after-tax net present value of $1.4 billion with a 33% IRR. Trilogy is led by an experienced management team with proven success in discovering and developing projects in Alaska. The company is well capitalized, has no debt, and possesses strong institutional support. Trilogy trades on the New York and Toronto exchanges under the ticker symbol TMQ. To learn more, go to trilogymetals.com. That's trilogymetals.com.
This is the Financial Survival Network, the information you need to thrive now more than ever.
No, let's remember, they haven't gone to college yet, right? They're applying to go into some type of higher education. So they have very little experience with finances and debt. All they know is that they're going to use this to, get them through hopefully the next 4 years. And they're going to get, they're going to come out, they're going to get their dream job with the top salary that's going to make it all great. And, that just becomes a recipe for disaster. When students, part of that education, if I were to write the curriculum, we have to prepare for the worst. Hey, Kerry, what if you don't graduate on time? What if you don't get the job of your dreams? 6 months, think about where you were 6 months ago and where we are today. That was a blink of an eye. So if you graduate, you don't get the job of your dreams, you have a life event while you're at college or the higher education institution, some type of life event, life happens, right? So you have a life event, or are you prepared to be able to, sustain those types of things? And if you're not, then we have to, maybe seek some alternative financing. Maybe there are grants and scholarships. Maybe you have to work your way through school. Maybe the 4-year, bundle, nice little tight bundle of higher education isn't for you, because in order to do that, you're not going to be able to have a full-time job. You're not going to be able to, finance or pay for some of this education without taking out the student loan. So these are all the, things that should be discussed prior to, but unfortunately, as we know, they're certainly not discussed.
Yeah, and the concept of expected earnings once you graduate from college, something and I'm all for learning for the sake of learning, but when you're paying such a high price and potentially lifelong indebtedness and debt servitude, then you really need to understand the impact. What is actually could happen if you lose your job for 6 months and you can't afford to pay it and you can't get a deferral. All these negative consequences really can come about. So in your practice, Paul, have you had people who were behind on student loans and actually got them forgiven?
So we have seen it. So we've seen a couple of different things that have happened. The forgiveness is certainly the smaller percentage of clients that have actually been able to obtain some debt forgiveness. But what we have seen is some students taking advantage of these income-based repayment plans. So they basically modify the existing agreement based upon your current salary. So we know what your projections were, but obviously that didn't happen. And fortunately, some of the past administrations had passed some programs. And again, I think one of the best ones is this income-based repayment program, which simply means you're going to pay back what you can actually afford. So we don't drive these people into even further debt, right? So when things really started to heat up here, we started to compare student loan debt to credit card debt. And, it was like neck and neck there for a while. And the unfortunate reality is that students that have higher student loan balances are also carrying much higher credit card debt, which leads to lower credit scores, which leads to higher interest rates, which leads to, again, this vicious debt cycle that basically was all triggered by the student loan in the first place.
And you can directly attribute the profligacy, the availability of student loans to the escalating cost of a college degree, of all these technical degrees, everything. Because like you said, they didn't increase the number of spots in college, number of people they could educate. They just raised the prices on the backs of increased student loans.
Absolutely correct. So again, what the argument is, what came first? The prices started going up, so the loans got bigger and easier to obtain, or were the finances available, so people started taking on, much more debt than they actually should in the first place.
Yeah, well, I'd say the chicken definitely came first, and that's it.
Exactly.
But hey, this is a mess. We got tens of millions of people behind on their student loans. And what I've learned being in that debt arena is when enough people get affected, the government is going to take action. The problem is that the government is solving a problem that they created. And generally, when they attempt to do that, they simply exacerbate it and make the problem worse and never really get to the root cause, which is the excess availability and the fact that the colleges have no skin in the game, whether you wind up paying the debt back or not.
No, that's perfectly said. Once again, we're kicking the can down the road, creating more debt to try and, satisfy somebody else's debt. Look, students, consumers, parents, we have to be held somewhat accountable. There's culpability for sure. But I also get the flip side of it, and we're shoving these things down people's throats without, again, it could be very, very simple. Something like a class. Look, if you're thinking about going to college, why not have one marking period, semester, some amount of time that's dedicated to financial planning, which involves applying for and paying back student loans.
Yeah, exactly. I think the financial education really is the opposite of financial education is financial ignorance. And when you're at a certain age, you just can't really appreciate the decision you're making now is going to haunt you for the rest of your life. You just don't have that ability. And that is where the problems come in. Hey, Paul, if people want to find out more about you, if you've got student loans that you want help with, where do we find you, Paul?
Just the easiest thing is to go to our website, and it's betterqualified.com, betterqualified.com. We do provide a free assessment of their current debt situation, whether it's student loans, credit card debt, mortgages, it could be anything or a combination of all of them. But, I always tell people, take advantage of the free credit analysis and consultation, because the reality is your credit score is going to cost or save you money every single month. Student loan debt is going to affect your credit score in a number of different ways. But here's the good news, Kerry. All hope is not lost. And unfortunately, in this country, we still have people who take their own lives because of debt. And it simply should not be the case. There's always a way to get out of debt. You just have to, sit down and actually put it on paper and work it out. And the one thing I can say is most people, once they start to do that, you kind of see the tension come out of their shoulders. They take a deep breath and they go, okay, it's not that bad. But if you get on that, hamster wheel and you're on the treadmill and you're running and you're panting and you're drowning and you say, I'm not going to be able to do it, I'm not going to be able to do it, then it becomes very difficult. But if you really take a step back, you put this plan into place, you got to execute it, you got to be disciplined, you got to focus on the debt in order to get out of the debt. There is a way out, and it doesn't take a lifetime to get out of debt. People are always amazed at how quickly they can actually get out of debt once they focus on it.
Yeah, and that's the important thing. Learn your alternatives, get the knowledge necessary, dig yourself out of that hole. There's hope, always hope. And you know what they say, where there's a will, there's a lawyer. But in any event, Paul, great having you back on. Any questions for Paul? Shoot us an email to kl@kerrylutz.com. We'll get you an answer. And while you're at it, go over to financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Sign up for your free newsletter. Paul, always a pleasure. Thanks so much for coming back.
Oh, thanks for having me back on, Kerry. Stay safe.
Thanks for listening to Kerry Lutz's Financial Survival Network, your solution to today's trying times. For the latest, go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Financial Survival Network, now more than ever.